There are moments in tennis when a player wins a match and changes the tournament. And then there are moments when a player changes the atmosphere before she has even hit a ball. Alex Eala has just created the second kind. The 21-year-old Filipina arrived in New York ahead of the 2026 US Open, and what happened almost immediately looked less like a routine tournament arrival and more like the entrance of a global superstar. Thousands of Filipino fans surrounded her. Philippine flags appeared across the grounds. Cameras followed her movements. Security had to step in simply to help her get from one place to another. And this was before her first US Open singles match had even begun. That detail may be the most important part of the entire story. Because Alex was not entering New York as the unknown teenager who once needed opportunities just to get onto the biggest stages. She was arriving as one of the most talked about young players in women's tennis, with an international fan base that has followed her from continent to continent. And New York was about to discover just how powerful that fan base had become. Alex announced her arrival with a simple message on Instagram. "Coming for you, NY." The words were short. The reaction was anything but. For the Filipino community around New York, this was not just another tennis tournament. This was a homecoming. Fans began preparing for Flushing Meadows. Flags were packed. Tickets were secured. Watch parties were organized. And anticipation spread through one of the largest Filipino communities outside the Philippines. But there was another reason the US Open could not treat Alex's arrival like an ordinary player appearance. Security. Earlier in the year, Alex had already learned exactly what can happen when popularity grows faster than tournament organizers expect. At the Australian Open, after a training session at Melbourne Park, she walked out expecting the normal flow of fans. Instead, the crowd became overwhelming. Supporters wanted photographs. They wanted autographs. They wanted to get close to the Filipina star. But the enthusiasm created a dangerous situation. Alex later explained that she became trapped against a wall as people continued moving toward her from behind. She could barely move. The crowd could not fully see what was happening at the front. And the pressure kept increasing. That was the moment the excitement stopped being harmless. It became a safety issue. Alex understood the lesson immediately. If the crowds were going to keep growing, security could no longer be optional. And now, months later, New York was proving exactly why. This was no isolated incident. The Alex Eala phenomenon had been building throughout the hard court season. Washington saw it. Toronto saw it. Cincinnati saw it. And now New York was experiencing it on the biggest possible stage. In Washington, organizers reportedly revealed that a huge share of ticket demand was connected to Alex's supporters. In Toronto, Filipino fans packed the stadium and created an atmosphere that made her matches feel dramatically different from ordinary WTA events. In Cincinnati, ticket prices reportedly increased sharply, yet demand remained strong enough for the event to sell out. That is the part the tennis establishment should be watching most carefully. This is not simply about one player having passionate supporters. It is about a market forming around a player. A player whose audience is willing to travel. A player whose supporters buy tickets. A player whose merchandise disappears from shelves. A player whose presence changes the atmosphere inside an arena. And that brings us to one of the most surprising developments before the US Open. Alex had not played a singles match in New York. Yet her merchandise was already making noise. Her Nike US Open apparel reportedly sold out ahead of products connected to several of the sport's biggest stars. That included merchandise associated with players such as Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Aryna Sabalenka. Think about what that means. A player does not need to win a match to create commercial demand. She does not even need to step onto the court. Her supporters can create the story before the competition begins. Alex's signature Nike court shirt was priced at $42 and featured floral artwork inspired by the sampaguita, a flower strongly associated with the Philippines. The design was more than ordinary tennis merchandise. It connected Alex's growing international profile with her Filipino identity. And when Alex promoted the shirt on Instagram, she made the message simple. "I have my own shirt. You know what to do." Her fans clearly understood. The shirt sold out within hours. A restock appeared. Then that disappeared too. That sequence matters because it demonstrates something bigger than a successful piece of clothing. Alex's supporters are not only watching her, they are participating in her rise. They are buying the shirts. They are filling the stands. They are carrying flags. They are creating noise. And they are turning tournaments thousands of miles from Manila into something that can feel remarkably close to home. That is why New York became such an important test. The US Open is not a small tournament. It is one of the biggest sporting events in the world. The grounds at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center can absorb enormous crowds. The tournament routinely attracts some of the biggest stars in tennis. But Alex's arrival created a different type of challenge. How do you manage a player whose popularity can overwhelm the normal movement around the grounds? The answer this time was obvious. Surround her with security. And unlike the Australian Open incident, Alex was still able to greet supporters with warmth. She did not appear to resent the attention. Quite the opposite. She has repeatedly spoken about how meaningful it is to experience this level of support from her fellow Filipinos. In Toronto, she described the experience as a tremendous pleasure. That emotional connection is central to the entire phenomenon. Alex knows that she represents something larger than herself. She is not simply another player climbing the rankings. She is the first Filipina to reach levels in professional tennis that previous generations could only imagine. And with that achievement comes responsibility. Alex has openly acknowledged the importance of understanding the platform she now possesses. She has also spoken about representing a minority and recognizing the significance of the people who see themselves in her story. That is why the reaction in New York feels different. For many fans, this is not merely about watching a talented athlete. It is about seeing someone from their culture step onto one of the biggest stages in the world. And that emotional connection has transformed Alex's matches. There was a time when Filipino supporters could watch her hoping for an upset. Now the question is changing. Not, can Alex compete with these players? But how far can she go? That is a completely different level of expectation. And it tells you how much has changed. Earlier in her career, Alex had to fight for opportunities. She needed a wild card to enter the Miami Open. She was ranked outside the top 100. Then came the breakthrough. Her ranking climbed. Her results improved. She became the first Filipina to enter the WTA Top 100. Then she pushed further. Top 50. WTA Finals. WTA 125 titles. Major victories. And eventually, a historic Grand Slam run. At Wimbledon, she defeated defending champion Iga Swiatek and reached the fourth round, becoming the first Filipina to reach the second week of a Grand Slam singles tournament. That result changed the perception of Alex completely. She was no longer simply a promising player. She was becoming a proven threat. And by the time she reached New York, the expectations were enormous. Her Cincinnati campaign ended in the third round against Amanda Anisimova after a battle lasting 2 hours and 28 minutes. Alex had been in position to take control, but the match slipped away. The defeat could have dominated the headlines. Instead, Alex moved forward. New York was next. And the US Open offered something Cincinnati could not. The biggest stage. The biggest audience. And perhaps the biggest Filipino support she had ever experienced. Her schedule itself showed how much attention surrounded her. Alex was set to compete in mixed doubles with Felix Auger-Aliassime, take part in the Stars of the Open exhibition against Eva Jovic, and then begin her women's singles campaign. That is already a demanding tournament schedule. But there was another layer. Every appearance carried the possibility of another crowd surge. Every walk around the grounds could become an event. Every photograph could attract more people. Every social media post could send thousands of supporters into action. Even her mixed doubles partner understood what was happening. Felix Auger-Aliassime joked that although Alex is younger than him, she is the one bringing the fan base. He described the experience of having the Alex Eala effect behind him as something that would be interesting and funny. That comment says more than it appears to. Because tennis players are accustomed to playing alongside famous athletes. They are not accustomed to suddenly becoming part of another player's cultural phenomenon. And Alex has created exactly that situation. Her popularity now follows her into events where she is not even playing singles. That is extraordinary. But perhaps the most revealing evidence came from the Australian Open. Her pre-tournament press conference generated enormous attention on the Australian Open's YouTube channel, reportedly drawing far more views than a press conference featuring two-time champion Aryna Sabalenka. The reported numbers were staggering. Around 171,000 views for Alex compared with roughly 8,000 for Sabalenka. Whether those numbers represented the entire picture or not, the message was impossible to ignore. People wanted to hear from Alex. They wanted to see Alex. And most importantly, they wanted to be part of the Alex Eala story. Now that story has reached New York. And there is a deeper reason the US Open moment matters. The Philippines has a population of more than 115 million people. Basketball has traditionally dominated the country's sporting culture. But Alex is helping create a new relationship between the Philippines and tennis. Her matches have become gathering points. Her victories have become national moments. Her presence overseas has become a reason for Filipino communities around the world to come together. That is why the scenes in New York can no longer be dismissed as ordinary fan enthusiasm. They represent a cultural shift. And the comparison to the enormous Filipino support surrounding Manny Pacquiao during his peak years becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. The sports are different. The careers are different. But the emotional mechanism is similar. A successful athlete becomes a symbol. The athlete represents home. Fans who live thousands of miles away suddenly have someone who carries a piece of their identity onto an international stage. And when Alex walks onto a court, those fans are not watching alone. They are watching together. That is the power behind the noise. That is why Philippine flags continue appearing wherever she plays. Australia, Dubai, Rome, London, Washington, Toronto, Cincinnati, and now New York. The geography keeps expanding, but the support keeps arriving. That creates a fascinating question for the US Open. What happens if Alex wins? Because the story before the tournament is already enormous. Imagine what happens after a major victory. Imagine the crowds after a deep run. Imagine the atmosphere if she reaches the second week again. The US Open could quickly discover that the biggest Alex Eala story was never going to happen before the tournament. It could happen inside the tournament. And that is where the pressure becomes real. Alex has already experienced the excitement. Now she has to perform under it. Thousands of fans can lift a player. But thousands of expectations can also become heavy. The challenge is no longer simply surviving the opponent across the net. It is managing the noise surrounding the court. Managing the schedule. Managing the physical demands. Managing the media. Managing expectations. And still finding the same calm that allowed her to defeat some of the best players in the world. That is the next evolution of Alex Eala. She is not chasing attention anymore. Attention is chasing her. The US Open has become the latest proof. She arrived in New York with a message that sounded almost playful. Coming for you, NY. But the city answered with something much louder. Fans came for her. Security followed her. Merchandise disappeared. Social media exploded. And one of the world's biggest tennis tournaments suddenly had a very different problem. How do you prepare for a player whose supporters can turn a normal appearance into a major event? That question will matter long after this tournament ends. Because if Alex continues climbing, Washington will not be the last tournament to feel this effect. Toronto will not be the last. Cincinnati will not be the last. And New York certainly will not be the last. The Alex Eala effect is no longer limited to the Philippines. It is global. And the most remarkable part is that this story is still being written. Alex has not reached her ceiling. She has not reached the limits of her popularity. She has not reached the limits of her tennis. And she certainly has not reached the limits of what Filipino fans believe she can accomplish. So when Alex Eala finally walks onto the US Open court, remember what happened before the first serve. Remember the thousands of fans. Remember the flags. Remember the security. Remember the merchandise that vanished from shelves. Remember the young player who once needed a wild card just to enter a major tournament environment. And then look at where she is now. walking through New York surrounded by security because the crowd simply wants to get close enough to see her. That is not just a tennis story. That is a transformation. The question is no longer whether Alex Eala belongs on the biggest stage. She has already answered that. Now there is only one question left. How far can she take this? Because New York has already felt the Alex Eala effect. The US Open has not even begun to show us its full power.